Daisy, welcome to the podcast. It's super great to chat with you again. For people who aren't familiar with you, your backstory, or maybe they haven't seen all of the stuff you share on social media, Two Boot Scootin', I think it is. Would you mind filling them in a little bit about who you are and what you've been got going on, for lack of a better way to put it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so Two Boots Scoot is my Instagram handle and TikTok. Because I at one point in the last year was in two boots, like the the medical like boots. So I had two foot surgeries, 2 months apart from like lagging injury from my last college season, which was last fall. And I just graduated from Dartmouth College with my master's in engineering this spring, and I was all set to go do my dream of playing pro soccer, and the injuries from the last season just caught up with me, and I ended up having two foot surgeries. So I'm on my recovery journey, rehab, lots of PT, and I've just been kind of, like, keeping track of all that and trying to journal and catalog that through, like, social media. Um
Absolutely, and it sounds like such a unique situation to find yourself in because I feel like a lot of the times when athletes get injured, right? Like they think of maybe like the ACL, for example, where they can tie it to one specific moment and then they cannot continue to play. They have to get surgery and then they kind of disappear for a year. I think a lot of the times we forget that that's not the only kind of injury that can occur in athletes. And sometimes it's like, hey, I know this is a problem, but I can temporarily play through it. Yeah, I'm going to need to get it addressed later on, but for right now, I can push through. And I think it's also unique that you've got both sides that were injured and needed some work done that way at almost the same time, nonetheless. So I think that's super unique about your story. I feel like a lot of athletes haven't thought of that or maybe haven't gone through something like that.
Yeah, my situation was definitely unique, because I found out too that I had, an extra bone in my feet on both sides, which the specific one I have is, like, fairly common, like, I think it's not, like, super rare, but people normally don't play soccer at the level I do, and so they don't put them under this amount of stress, so I think it's very rare that people even know they have these extra bones, but for me, it was getting kicked, and I was going into tackles, and just, like, the wear and tear over time, um, was, like yeah, they were definitely stress injuries that accumulated, and finally just was, like, after my last season, my body knew, um, that I needed to figure them out.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's so funny you say that because I had seen a number of those clinically. They were, os trigonum cases where it's like, yeah, they just have another bone in their foot, and it's the craziest thing, and no one could ever really answer for me, like, why it happens, and it's funny because some people were getting surgery to get it removed, and other people, they were just kinda like, "Yeah, you're fine, just, like, rehab it a bit and go from there." It's kind of a unique thing that also I feel like is not discussed a lot, but diving into your backstory a little bit more, I would imagine that you played soccer for quite a length of time in order to play at the D1 level at Dartmouth like you did, and then obviously for the professional transition as well. Where did soccer start for you? Where did this whole journey kind of kick off from the early days, if you will?
Well, it started I'm from Maine, so I am from a little island off the coast of Maine where I started playing soccer when I was really little just because all my friends were doing it, and it was really fun. My cousins, all my family was playing, so it just started, like, really little, probably, like, 4 or 5, and then there just weren't a lotta there aren't a lot of club teams up there, so the opportunities are really slim, so I ended up playing on boys' teams, which I feel like happens when you wanna play at a high level or you're talented, but there's no girls' club, so you end up playing with the boys' teams, and then eventually it got to a point where, like, we had to decide as a family, like, should I really try and go for this soccer thing and put in some more time. So I ended up driving like 4 hours to training one year, one fall because that was the closest like high level team. So I did that in high school and I got recruited through that team and and then I went to Dartmouth from there.
That's awesome. I'd imagine that decision did not come lightly, right? Like you're probably a teenager at the time trying to decide like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, do I want to go all in on this sport? Like is this the sport for me?" For lack of a better way to put it. I'd imagine there was a lot of pressure with that. What helped you make that decision and what kind of advice do you offer for others that might find themselves in similar positions to where you were at that time?
Yeah, I think it's hard because you're so young and, like, I remember my parents being like, "Do you wanna play soccer in college?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but, like, I don't know what that means." Um, it means driving 4 hours to get recruited. But y I think was really I loved the sport, so I was kinda just like, "Yes, if you guys are willing to put in this time," because it was my parents who were doing the driving. So, it was really up to them if they could sacrifice that time for me, and then I was just super grateful for because like, going to practice was a big deal, and which it normally isn't for kids. They're like, "Ugh, I haven't practiced 4 or 5 days a week," and, like, I know a lot of people can burn out, but for me, it was like, wow, I get to go to 1 practice a week. I better make this count. Um, and yeah, really thanks to my family and yeah, for the support. But for anyone in that situation, I would say like I say go for the sport as long as you can, if you can, because it's not forever and it opens so many doors for you. Like it really helped me go to um a great college, so I
Yeah.
think it was super
Sometimes you
important.
just gotta send it, for lack of a better way to put it,
Mhm.
and jump all in, and it's interesting as I've talked with athletes over the past several years, a lot of them have shared similar stories where they're going on crazy, ridiculous drives at least once a week, usually multiple times a week for training, for access to this and all these different things. Like, there's a lot of trade-offs or opportunity costs, if you will, that come with the life of an elite athlete. And I feel like what goes on under the iceberg, metaphorically speaking, is not often seen or discussed amongst athletes enough, right? Like taking your example, it's like, hey, we're driving 4 hours for me to train, which I'm assuming that training was like an hour or two. It's like we're spending more time traveling than actually training. Like it's really much of a quality over quantity kind of battle, if you will. And it's like, to your point, you have to make those reps count when you get them because you have a lot more limitation in how many opportunities and chances you get. But it's like, that's what it takes. Like, it's high risk and high reward and rolling the dice and missing, high
Mhm.
school events with your friends and probably dances and that sort of thing. Like, those are just things that don't fit into the picture for a lot of the elite athletes, unfortunately.
For sure. Yeah, I think, like, I would always I'd wake up really early after prom, both junior and senior year, and go to, like, a soccer game, or, like, I would miss everything on the weekends to travel for games, so it's definitely a sacrifice, but for me, I feel like it was really worth it.
Absolutely. What ultimately led you to decide Dartmouth? Because obviously athletes are usually presented with a few different choices or options for their college career, and everyone kind of decides where they want to go for a different reason. So, what was your kind of rationale and reasoning, if you will, behind Dartmouth as your future home for academics and athletics?
Yeah, so I kind of, I started recruiting later, I would say, just because of my remote, like I'm so remote. So I started recruiting late, so it was kind of thinking of places that were near my home and where we could travel to and visit and where it was accessible and also I knew I wanted like a really good academic school, so I was either thinking I was really thinking all the Ivies. I was looking at all of them and some of the like best GAC schools. My mom went to Middlebury, so we visited there. Um, so it kind of started with I wanted like both things to be present, like super rigorous academics and also super good quality soccer. So that's what kind of led me to the Ivy League. And then it really just I took visits at a couple schools, and my visit at Dartmouth was so fun, and the girls who I stayed with were like amazing. So it really just came down to like um which spot I had the most fun at. And it was Dartmouth, and I love how we're really in the woods up there, which is very similar to my home. So I loved that, and the coaching staff was super. Um, at the time, now we have a new staff who I absolutely love. Um, but actually, the head coach now is the assistant when I was recruited there. So they were amazing, and yeah, it really came down to how much fun I had on my visit.
Yeah, that sounds like it was just an incredible experience for you from the early days, if you will. How were you able to balance the life of a D1 athlete at a high level program that way with the academic rigor of an Ivy League education that way, especially in engineering, environmental engineering, nonetheless? Like, I'd imagine there was a lot of balance that was required with that.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's good because your whole team is kind of going through that together. So there's a lot of support from the staff and from like the administration to support athletes because they know we're going through like a really hard balance. And so I would say great support from the staff and the team and my teammates. Like we all study together, get on the bus, go to practice, go to games. Like everyone's kind of in it together. So we're helping each other. And then for me, I liked having engineering as like another world compared to soccer and vice versa. Like they're very different and very different groups of people. So I could kind of keep them separate. And when like if I was sick of studying for an engineering test, I had to go train, which was a nice switch up. And if soccer wasn't going super well, then I would go down to the engineering buildings and I'd be like you don't really have time to sweat how it's going in different areas of your life because you'll just move on to the next. So and I love the engineering department. I met some really great people. So a lot of support for student athletes at Dartmouth for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing, and like you said, you kinda have to go all in on both. You can't be half and half. That's the only way to really get the results that you want out of it, and obviously, you had a pretty successful soccer career, in my opinion. You scored over 12 goals, you had a number of assists that way, and so on. What moment during your soccer career was the most memorable for you in college that way? Was there any, like, game-winning goal or, like, just epic performance by your team that really sticks with you to this day?
Yeah, I think there was a bunch, but I also I also tore my ACL my first year of school. So 2 out of 4 of my seasons were just half seasons. Um because like of when I tore it and when I made it back. So I tore it playing Yale away at Yale. So in the warm up to the game. So the like 2 years later we're back at Yale away, and it's our first Ivy League game of the season, and we are warming up on the same side of the field that I tore my ACL, and I didn't think it would be a big deal, but it was just, like, a very, very emotional, game for me personally, and, we had our new head coach, Taylor Schramm, and shout out Taylor, and we beat them 1-0. And so it was just like it was a whole team win. It was like a late second half goal from one of my teammates, and but it was just I played a lot. I feel like I like had a really good performance, and it was just like a hard fought 1-0. win, especially after, like, an emotional day of coming back from and kind of feeling like I had finally turned the corner from that injury.
Yeah.
So
No, that sounds
sticks
like such
out.
an epic moment for you, my goodness.
Yeah, yeah, that sticks out for sure, and then there's a lot of fun goals, um, especially my 5th year, um, but that one really sticks with me.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely awesome, and I would imagine some of your goals I haven't watched any videos, but I'd imagine they were pretty impressive that way. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're about 6 foot tall or something like that, so I'm sure you kinda
Yeah.
stand out on the field, if you will.
Yeah, I definitely scored a lot of headers, especially in my last season.
Yeah, no, that's great. Obviously, diving into the ACL a little bit more because that is an injury that I think everyone is very familiar with. People hear it and they immediately know what it means, but you were able to come back from that in, it sounds like a very timely manner that way. Walk me through what that injury and what that process was like for you, Daisy.
Yeah, I think that injury was very pivotal for me in terms of, like, learning how my body really feels and, like, being in tune with it, and also just having a lot of discipline, and, like, it really changes you having a major surgery and a major recovery like that, especially in the sport you love and trying to make it back to that. So I learned a lot about myself and my body and how to be strong, how to recover, how to do all kinds of things that maybe I just I was kind of coasting along in college, like, I would roll and use the Normatex, but not the same. Uh, now I was in the training room every day doing PT, so it really helped me with that, and, yeah, I think in general, it was just a big growth moment for me, and I did make it back, like, in 9 months, which I know, like, is the recovery, but sometimes things don't go right and wrong, so it was really exciting when I got to play again, like, halfway through that 2nd season.
Yeah, I can imagine, and it's great when everything goes according to plan for the
Yeah.
most part that way, if you will, and you mentioned how you felt like it was a very essential growth period for you, and it's always interesting to me because I hear that from a lot of different athletes is that, like, one step back, if you will, of an injury almost creates 10 steps forward for them, just giving them this opportunity to reset and regroup on everything they're doing, whether that be their nutrition, their sleep, their physical element, and developing this routine where it's like, hey, every day I'm working on some kind of physical trait and physical attribute to return to this level. And I think there's something quite transformative about that process as well of going from playing your sport unrestricted to not even being able to walk all the way back to playing your sport, hopefully at the level that you desire to be playing at. Because I think that's another impressive thing about your journey as well, is it's not just getting back to sport, it's also getting back and playing at the level that you want to. Because some people make it back and then for one reason or another, they're not playing at the level that they want to. And it takes them, significantly longer to get to that point. So I think that whatever you did obviously worked well, and I'm sure that there's so many insights that you have for others that are in those shoes as well, because again, that just impacts so many athletes every year.
Totally. Yeah, I think for me, especially with this 2nd big injury, surgery that I've dealt with with my feet, like, it definitely made me double down on pro deciding to play pro sports and, like, going all in on that because it could have easily gone the other way. When you have a big injury, you're like, "Okay, maybe this is, like, a sign that it's, my time to be done." But for me, it always seems to go the other way, where I feel like it's like 10 steps forward, more incentive, more motivation to get better and stronger and faster and just better at my sport. So, it definitely has tipped me that way again this time, so I'm, yeah, all in. I've been I guess I graduated in June, so now it's October, so I've been that's my goal this year, and I am, like, I've put off getting jobs, like, I'm not, like, full-time jobs, I'm not, I'm, like, all in to my soccer training, so, it's really interesting that it made me kind of double down on that.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to be at the end of the day, right? If you're gonna go all in on something, go all in, right? Don't leave anything to chance. Don't leave anything on the table. You wanna be able to look back and reflect and say, "Hey, if nothing else, I gave it my all. I gave it everything. I literally did everything I could, and I left
Mhm.
nothing out there." And I think that's the best way to do it. And diving into that concept again of the 2 foot ankle injuries, almost simultaneously, if you will, that way. Was there anything that surprised you about your recovery thus far or anything that maybe you weren't prepared for? Because I've heard from other athletes in the past that feel like, "Hey, I've been through an injury or surgery before. I kinda know what to expect. I feel like I'm ready for this." But I'd imagine going from 1 knee to 2-foot ankle and boots is kinda different, if nothing else.
Totally. I think what was hard about this was the second surgery was a little bit of a surprise. I knew I knew that my right foot needed the surgery, and so we did that, but then I had never anticipated doing the left foot until all my weight was on that foot, and I was compensating just because my other foot was in a boot, and over time, like, towards the end of my 6 to 8 weeks on crutches, like, my left foot was really bothering me, and so at that point, like, I went back to my surgeon and was kind of freaking out and having, like, a total meltdown because I had just gone through and just made it out of the crutches phase on the one side, and then my other one was started feeling like the same way. So, it was kind of crazy, and but there's nothing you can do, like, she was kinda just like my surgeon's very, practical, and she's like, "Okay, we gotta put a boot on it." So I leave there in 2 boots, not sure which one I should be putting weight on my little scooter, like, ki kind of insane. Um, so that was a surprise, and then I ended up having the surgery on the left side, like, a week later, because it just wasn't getting better, so it was definitely a surprise to find myself in 2 boots, and to reset my clock because I was hoping to be back with the right one, I would have been back 2 months sooner, which is a big deal for me and to get training before I go on trial somewhere, so it definitely was, upsetting to have that timeline pushed as well.
Yeah. Yeah, walk me through that process too of going professional in soccer because from what I've come to learn and experience and just talk about with athletes that way is it's different than other sports, right? Like people think baseball or football and it's like, oh yeah, I go to college, I play, I get drafted, or maybe some of them don't even play in college and they just go right into the professional leagues right from high school. But from what I've come to understand, soccer is not necessarily like that.
Yeah, there used to be a draft, but that was kind of, like, abolished a while ago, a couple 2 years ago, and so now it's very much set on, like, the players and clubs trying to attract players because they want it to be the right fit for the player and the club, so I think, women's soccer is growing, NWSL, the USL Super League, or Gainbridge Super League is the two Division I levels, in the US at least, and so that's kind of where I've been following those teams, I've been trying to make connections with those coaches and ma GMs, and just that's kind of where I've been, like, a lot of people go overseas and play too, um, there's a bunch of good European leagues, Australia, all over Europe, and a bunch of different countries. But for me, I kind of want to stay in the US, so I'm looking to those two leagues.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely different. You usually go, you're invited to go tr on trial for a team for a couple weeks, and you either sign a contract at the end or you get asked to leave. So, it's definitely a high pressure, system for sure.
How are you preparing yourself to handle that pressure? Because I feel like in general, athletes just tend to respond really well to it, but there's always some kind of prep work that goes into that. Going back to that iceberg analogy for a second, like, I figure some of these high stakes games and environments you find yourself in, there's some kind of something that you did to kind of help make that moment feel a little bit more smooth for you.
Totally. I think most of it's in your, like, preparation in terms of feeling good for me, like, technically, and just feeling the most prepared, like, physically and technically, like, my fitness, like, my first touch, shooting, like, just being really intentional about having a lot of reps and just feeling like, "Okay, this is the best. I'm, like, the best technically and physically that I can be," so that's pretty much all you can do, and then once you're prepared, it's like, it kinda just it'll come more naturally when you're in those moments because it's just something you've built those connections in your brain, like, for months and months, so you hope it just will continue to work through the tryout, um, but yeah, I think just being super prepared and not rushing into it for sure.
No, I can imagine, and to your point from before too, it's great to see the rise in opportunities that exist in the space that way. NWSL, USL, and even I've talked with a number of athletes that are playing over in Europe, and it's like, I don't think that's always been a thing either. I could be wrong, but it's like in general, I think now more than ever, the opportunities to play at the highest levels are expanding and growing. And it's like, why not give it a shot? Why not go all in? Like, you never know what can happen. So I think there's just so much value in pursuing something like that. And I think the work that you're doing to make that possible for yourself is incredible. What's that kind of return to sport process been like for you following injury? Obviously, getting your first touches back on the ball and that sort of thing, kind of a big deal for a lot of soccer athletes. How has that been kind of going for you? And what kind of advice do you have for other athletes that are also maybe transitioning back to soccer or a different sport following an injury that way?
Totally. Yeah, this week I just started um kicking a soccer ball for the first time in like almost a year, which is pretty crazy. So I think I've relied super heavily on my PT or trainers, like, so just making sure you have a really good medical team that you trust and are making a lot of time for you, and I think it can be hard to get good, treatment. So I, like, will research PTs, and, like, I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina from Maine and New Hampshire just because, like, the facilities um and the PTs here, like, I moved here solely because of them, and so that is number 1, and then number 2 is I have just been, like, leaning into, like, I guess I'm totally bought in, so I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna get an individual coach, and I'm going to, like, do all these steps that, might, like, take cost now, but they'll be, like, super useful in the future." Like, I am working with an individual coach who is, like, walking me through all my technical, um, which is, like, he trains players at the highest level. He, is an ex-pro himself, so I think, like, just I've had to find the right team and assemble the right group of people to help me succeed because I really wanna be back at the highest level, which means you have to do your homework and figure out what your training schedule is, what your schedule is, what your fitness schedule is. I shout out to Trent, my strength coach from Dartmouth. He is still helping me with my strength program. So he's helping me with do that. Um, so yeah, just I feel like I have a really good team, and it definitely took work on my part to get that together. But from there, then like, who's informing me because I don't know. Return to sport.
No, I think it's great to have that team set up around you, right? Like in order to succeed at any sport, I don't care what the sport is, lacrosse, baseball, soccer, whatever, you have to have a team. And the same is true in relation to returning to that sport from injury. You have to have a team. You mentioned strength coach, PT, skills coach, and so on that way. I think those are all important members of the team. But also, depending on the athlete and the situation, sometimes, hey, sports psych or sports nutrition, any of these other things that you can throw in there that helps complete that picture for you, I think just makes your likelihood of return more successful. And I think the other thing too is a lot of times when athletes are recovering from an injury, they get this realization of how much of their identity and time was spent in sport. And especially once they're removed from college as well, and they don't have maybe the academic pressures and this need to constantly study, there's this realization of like, oh my gosh, I have time to do other things that way. And athletes do all kinds of stuff. We were just talking with an athlete the other day who had picked up painting in her like injury recovery that way. For you, what is it? I think jewelry making, I think I saw.
Yes, yes, I have been doing a lot of, jewelry making and a little bit of painting and knitting. I knit a full sweater while I was on crutches and lying on the couch. Took me, like, a month, but it was the perfect time because I was sitting on a couch for a month. Um So, yeah, I think I've definitely developed hobbies and outlets in those moments when you almost don't realize how upset or maybe even like slightly depressed you are in those moments, but you look back and you're like, wow, I was like pretty down bad, and I'm glad I was painting 24/7 so that I didn't have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing to me to see the outlets that people develop that
Oh.
way, and I think it's good to kind of use that time to learn a new skill. I know some athletes, and, I'm not shaming this by any means because I think everyone deserves a little time like this. Like, some athletes will just kinda, like, throw the show on and, chill on the couch and that sort of thing, which I totally get, but I think if you can use that time to pick up some kinda new skill or hobby or pastime or whatever it is that way, like, go all in on that because that's another thing that it's only going to help you and lead to more opportunities in the long run, I feel.
Yeah, my mom was like, "You can't play soccer right now or work out, so just do things that you would never have the time to do normally and, like, take advantage of that because you'll probably never have that again, or hopefully you'll never have that again, so take advantage of it while you can."
Yeah, absolutely, and I'd imagine too, just, like, growing up on you mentioned an island, so I'm assuming, I could be totally wrong about this because 'cause I've never been to Maine before, but I'm assuming a little bit of island life, like a lot of fishing and that sort of thing, which it's like, "Hey, can do it now, great," but, like, maybe, 2 weeks after surgery, couldn't necessarily do some of those original pastimes, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a very we actually live on an island with a national park, so it's Acadia National Park. It's very active, lots of hiking and biking and being outside. So it was definitely different to be there and not able, and my family's super active, so I definitely was doing quiet painting and knitting and a lot of cooking and making yummy food to fuel me. So
We love that. We love that. And then obviously, we've seen you sharing all kinds of amazing stuff on social media that way. But I'm sure there's other athletes out there who are maybe intimidated by it or they don't know where to start. How do you kind of approach the content creation side of injury, if you will?
yeah, I think I I kind of dragged my feet for a long time and, like, didn't wanna, post, didn't wanna, like, do Tik I just got TikTok, like, I've kind of stayed away from it, but it's really the way the world is going, and especially for pro athletes, like, if you want to make money and have a following, it'll just help your career, if you have a big social media presence, so that was part of the motivation, and then the reason I started initially was just because I, like, was having all these funny things happening to me, like, I would wanna be tanning, and I would be getting a boot tan on both sides or one side, and, like, I just wanted to share some of those things, especially with, like, close friends. So, that's kind of where it started, like, all my friends followed me and they would be like, "Love the content, I love," like, I kinda kept it, like, very close friends, and then finally I was kinda like, "Okay, I guess I should get a TikTok. I guess I should start, figuring this out because it takes a while. I mean, a lot of the content is very, very cringy at first, and I still feel like I'm in the cringy spot, but you have to shake all that out before you can actually, um, just learn how to, like, do it. So,
Yeah, and
I
I
wanna shake out all before I'm before I'm
absolutely.
on a team.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's funny because, like, I have, not been very successful on social media per se, but, I do it anyways because it's like the more you do it, the better you get, and I think that to your point, I think it's something that it's not going anywhere, so find a way to enjoy it, find a way to engage with people, and I think the networking and reach that you get from social media is unbelievable. You meet people that you wouldn't ever connect with otherwise because of having some kind of presence and platform, if you will. And I think that that makes your ability to kind of leave what I call a legacy that much greater, right? Hey, you can turn around and have an impact and influence on other athletes, the next generation of athletes, all because you took the time to grow a platform on social media. That's what it takes. And it's like there's something very powerful and impactful about that. And I think a lot of times people only see a certain side of it, right? Like, oh, well, TikTok is just people dancing or Instagram is just professional videos or whatever. And they don't realize that I think a lot of other good potential things can come from just building a following and putting yourself out there to the world, if you will.
Totally, and I've done the thing where, like, I just don't think too much, and I don't let myself spend a lot of time on each post because I think that's a pitfall a lot of people can get in if they're first, like, starting out. Like, I just try not to think too much, just, like, go for it, and then, it hasn't been bad for me so far.
No, that's awesome, Daisy. Now, what kind of things do you feel like are on the future for you other than professional soccer career? Anything else in the works or coming soon?
Yeah, um I'm really focused on pro soccer right now, but eventually I will have to get a job because soccer isn't forever. But I would love to then come back and make use of my master's in engineering. So I actually have been doing a little bit of that. I've been studying to take like my fundamentals of engineering exam and my professional engineering exam, which are two kind of things engineers need to complete after you have a degree to be a certified engineer and for you to open up like your own practice. So I would hope to have those um done before I'm finished with soccer because then it would be a lot easier to transition into that career. So that's kind of I'm trying to stay up to date on physics and math and stuff while playing soccer.
I give you all the credit in the world for that. Once they started talking about imaginary numbers and putting the alphabet into the number system, I had checked out from all of that. So I give you all the credit in the world for that,
Yeah.
Daisy. Is there anything we missed as we were discussing today, or anything else you want to share about you, your journey, and all the amazing things that you've been doing.
I don't think so. I think I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and for people who want to find out more about you online that way, keep up to date with all the things, whether that be soccer related, injury related, jewelry related, or anything else, where can I find you all at?
Um, my Instagram is either Daisy Carla 15 or Two Boot Scoot, and my TikTok is Two Boot Scootin'.
That's awesome. We'll link to all of that in the description below.
'Cause
That
that was me for months,
yeah,
on the scooter with 2 boots.
I love it. I love it. That's so funny. Daisy, this was awesome. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.